Good evening. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Gary.
Here.
Pipcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand. Mahoney.
Here. Health. It's through with Chew Week, and the Fargo Cast Public Health encourages residents to quit using smokeless tobacco due to the risk of cancer and heart disease. The library is here to celebrate Dr. Seuss's birthday, and the library and the Valley Reading Council will host a Seuss-tastic celebration week at the home starting March 1st, and a free packet can be picked up at the library, which includes themed book lists, crafts, and Read Across America celebration certificate. The Seed Library is also returning March 1st and will feature a variety of free vegetable, herb, and flower seeds for the public while supplies last. This evening, we will show a video detailing the second theme of our 2021 State of the City video, Working for You, is one of our 5 overarching strengths which will power strong 2021 in Fargo. I hope you enjoy. Fargo prides itself on working harder, smarter, and being the regional leader. Fargo has the only landfill in the region which collects, recycles, and sells natural gas produced within the landfill. More than 30,000 residential homes worth of greenhouse gases are removed from the atmosphere each year because of this. It also provides a steady source of revenue, helping to keep solid waste costs down. The inspection department works diligently every day to ensure our homes and neighborhoods are safe to live in. They have stepped up code enforcement to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods. Fargo's newest chief of police, David Zabalski, was selected utilizing a highly transparent and public process. We understand the importance of listening to residents and included several members of the public on the selection committee. The public also provided more than 100 questions to consider for the hiring process, further ensuring our new chief is representative of the people we serve. COVID-19 was a hindrance to many things in 2020, including the annual spring cleanup week. However, we heard how much everybody missed it and developed a modified fall event. 1,200 tons of garbage were safely disposed of while protecting workers and the public from the virus. The City of Fargo, Cass County, and Clay County unveiled a new citizen alert app, Cass Clay Alerts. This new app boasts upgraded features which allow officials to reach more people. It can even be used to alert residents when vehicles need to be removed from the streets due to weather events. The Fargo Police Department also made it easier for residents to anonymously report crimes, thanks to the implementation of the new TIP 411 line. This new service allows residents to report suspicious behavior, even if they wish to not be identified. This is an example of how the city continues to strive to find ways to modernize and improve interactivity with the public. When residents ask for something, the city does what it can do to make it happen. A perfect example of this is the new snow emergency ordinance. Response times to clear neighborhood streets of snow were not as fast as we wanted, due in a large part to vehicles parked on the streets during major snow events, hampering snowplow operators' ability to clear lanes. This new ordinance helps to clear the streets of parked cars and in turn the snow. The city will utilize Cass Clay Alerts in order to give those parked on the streets plenty of advance notice and provide adequate time to move. Work continued in 2020 to continue the Land Development Code diagnostic. This comprehensive look at our LDC will help to guide improvement in ways that we can develop the city and help create an even more intelligent, efficient blueprint for development. 2021 will see the creation and implementation of Fargo's first Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This position will be responsible for assessing and developing diversity and inclusivity initiatives in the city, ensuring Fargo is a welcoming and a diverse community where opinions of people with all backgrounds are heard and taken into account. The new year will also mark a monumental display of the city's commitment to transparency and accountability, as the police department will roll out new state-of-the-art body cameras. These cameras will provide additional clarity and evidence during police interactions, helping to protect both our police officers and the people they serve every day. Thank you. Approve the order of agenda. There is a motion to approve the order of agenda, adding 2 extra items to the end of the regular agenda. The first is to add a proposal to amend the city's state of emergency ordinance, and the second is to discuss liquor licenses held by Jim Swanek. And to move item 4 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't believe it's proper to drop items like this on an agenda without any public notice and without following our own procedures. We have a deadline on Thursday noon to put something on an agenda. These topics, the public doesn't even know we're talking about them. How can we justify doing that? So I move that we go back to amend the motion to include number 4, pulled from consent, and that's it. The other agenda stays as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Commissioner Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, this is not new. This happens all the time. It's not the first time you've approved this. So when Tony Greenberg was here, it happened a lot. So it's nothing new. I think that it's more so the uncomfortable nature of the topics that is more abrasive, I think, to people than the actual motion to add them. So this is nothing new.
Nancy Morris, is there an issue if we get into the liquor license issues? Don't we have to give sufficient notice to the owner as well?
Excuse me. So yes, that is correct. You can discuss it today, but you would not be able to take action with respect to the license. It would be directed back to the auditor to set up notice, which would require proper service in order to take any action.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
if I could ask a question, Nancy, before you leave, about the other proposal in regards to changing an ordinance. Would that not also need to be the same kind of, we can discuss it but not take action on it?
That is correct. You could make a direction to that. There wouldn't be a due process requirement with respect to the changing of your ordinance. So you could have a direction back to the city attorney to work with the department for a change of an ordinance.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask, can you clarify which one we're going to vote on first? And so everyone's clear on that.
What we'd vote on first is the amendment would just, would not allow the 2 new agenda items added, and it would move item 4 to the regular agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Pipcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the oops, we don't have to vote the first motion. Is there a motion to approve the first motion was to allow those 2 in there?
It was already.
No, it was amended, so now the motion is just to move
Well,
forward.
with the amendment, okay, sorry, okay. Roll call vote, please.
Pipcorn,
No.
Gary,
No.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it's Eric. Eric over here. I thought, if I may, just to clarify something for future reference, relative to adding things to the agenda. In terms of the open meeting law, I mean, it is okay to add something to the agenda after the deadline. The open meeting law addresses sort of the concept that a city can't sort of know about something before the agenda deadline and sort of intentionally hold it off in order to avoid avoid it. So it is possible to do that. I don't think any of that changes what you've decided today, but just so you know, it is possible to add something to an agenda after the deadline. I would think it would normally be sort of a request to add something to the agenda, and then it would involve notifying the media when that request comes in. So just so you know that it's possible.
But Eric, to that question, so if Kimber had received the ordinance question Thursday afternoon, should she have to republish public notice so the public knows that ordinance is in front of the commission?
Well, right, and I think that probably the better protocol would be that it's an item that has been asked to be added to the agenda on Monday, and it would be subject to your approval to be added. But yeah, there'd be notice that that's the intention.
So then at least the public could read it, and then the commissioners would have it in their hands to read it starting Thursday.
Right, and the issue becomes, from the standpoint of sort of open meeting law, the issue becomes one of why isn't it there before the agenda if you knew about it and so forth. I mean, again, there's no bright line tests here, but you just can't abuse that process is what the open meeting law is all about.
Okay. Any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2021 meeting and the February 17th, 2000 special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 26, excluding item 4, which has been moved to the regular agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. So regular agenda, we start with resident comments, and we're ready to go. Do you want to put that slide up, please, there, Ty? And I think Faith Dixon has spoken before. She's virtual tonight, so she's up first. Faith, are you there?
There's no one yet in the virtual room, so let's go to the in-person.
Pardon?
There's no one yet in the virtual room, so let's go to the in-person.
Okay. I have Alexander Simon. I think he's been here before.
Hello, Alexander Simon. There seems to be a little bit of confusion. I apologize if I haven't been clear. I never intended to argue the science of COVID. I've been coming here to mock the mask mandate, not argue it. Your mask mandate isn't based on any science. There's nothing to argue. Do you believe the Earth is the center of the universe? Do you believe the Earth is flat? Did the U.S. really land on the moon? Can the Supreme Court allow ownership of another human being? Gravity doesn't exist. No, I'm not here to argue those things. That'd be absurd. As such is the mask mandate, absurd and misguided at best. You can't stop the spread of a virus any more than you can walk to the edge of an erupting volcano and command it to be at rest. I'd like to see you try, and then I'd listen to you. I've come to convict you of this wrong and to mock. The unconstitutional mask mandate is a civil rights issue. It's a medical rights issue. Most importantly, it's a religious liberties issue. Amendment 1 of the Constitution of these United States, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, end quote. The primary role of government is to protect our God-given rights, not take them away. You don't get to pick and choose who gets the free exercise thereof. Your forcing of the masks is forcing your religion of fear down my throat. Your fear is making you do evil, wicked, and terrible things. Your rights are more important than your life. Without them, you're a slave. You're going to need to put a bullet in my brain before I put this on due to COVID. Mahoney, you need to squeeze that trigger yourself. The mask is your gateway drug to a vaccine. I won't receive it. What will you do to people who won't take it? Will you put us in concentration camps, like in the Japanese Americans during World War II? I'll volunteer to go. I have a lot more to say, but you don't want to hear it.
Next speaker is Christina Klinghammer.
Good evening. I guess the only thing that I really want to bring to attention is the fact that all of this is being done based off of cases that were relevant to a testing method called PCR, which was invented by a man named Kary Mullis, who won the Nobel Prize for his invention in '93, who conveniently died I want to say, a matter of 2 or 3 months prior to all of this exploding. But PCR is not a testing method, and he stated this on numerous occasions. It is simply polymerase chain reaction. It's an amplification method. As far as the masks go, I just find it, I don't know, so a virus particle is significantly smaller than the size of a bacteria particle. Bacteria that builds up from us exhaling what we should be exhaling. So ultimately, things like bacterial pneumonia, et cetera, will be the result of these constant required masks. There's been numerous hospitalizations to prove that is the case. So we're making each other sick. And then on top of that, your immune system, you need to live. And if you have no exposure, you have no immune system. I understand where you guys are coming from. I know you just want to do the right thing. So if you actually look at the science, let's do the right thing.
Christopher Cohen.
Okay, now back to reality. With all this anti-science stuff, what about your smartphones? Why do they work? That's quantum science. It's using the same principles of science that epidemiologists use. So listen to them, not to political pundits. So when I came, with the video here, I saw at the beginning of the meeting you say that the city is engaging in highly transparent processes. I agree for the chief of police, that was a good process. I enjoyed that. And I was glad with the result. I think our new chief of police was extremely articulate in that process, and so far I think we're getting a good result. The city attorney keeps referring to the open meetings law, but we don't have to use that as I guess I'm saying the city doesn't have to use that as a requirement. We can go above and beyond the open meetings law. We don't have to stay right at it at minimum requirements. I think it would be good for the residents of the city to have a completely open city government. I think they would feel less powerless and they'd be more engaged. If they were, there would be less apathy, because often we complain about the apathy of the public, but they don't have a way of being involved in a lot of things. And the example that I was going to talk about tonight is the Amazon plant that was brought in here. And it was brought in completely secretively. I know the city, you've now told us that the city worked on it from June until you announced it on October 30th as a done deal. That's the first time we found out about the Amazon plant. We did have questions, common sense questions. What would the burdens be to the city? Bringing in, what kind of wages would the company bring to city residents? We later found out that it will bring 500 $15 an hour jobs. That's low income. Do we have the capacity for that many more low income residents? Do we have enough transitional housing? Do we have enough low income housing units? Do we have enough food pantries? What about the burden to public safety for this many more people who are low income? What about health services at family health care? Do we have enough of that? These are things we wanted to ask you and talk about, but we couldn't. Thank you.
our other person could not come online. So we will go to public input opportunities. Item 28A, continued from 3/22/21, application for a Class CW alcoholic beverage license for the White House and Vintage Rental, doing business as Ivy and Rose Warehouse, to be located at 2214 1/2 Street North. Steve Sprague to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Good evening. So the Ivy and Rose Warehouse, they got a little bit ahead of themselves. They didn't have all of their boxes checked, and so they've requested an extension on the time to consider their application. We did the same thing at Liquor Control, and so we'll just move it out a month.
Is there a motion to approve the continuation to March 22nd?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary.
Yes.
Peppercorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. B, application for a Class GH alcoholic beverage license for doing Audubon African European Cuisine Catering, doing business as Audubon and A&E Fusion Cuisine, to be located at 1317 13th Avenue South. Steve Sprague to explain.
Yes, Mayor, this is an application for a GH, which is a beer and wine. It does require food sales, and it does not allow the physical bar structure. The food sales have to exceed the alcohol sales. We did go through the background check. This one did come in with all the boxes checked, and so it comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Liquor Control Board.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this application? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item C, annexation part of sections 3, 4, and 10, Township 138 North, Range 49 West, containing 251.1 acres, more or less. Mark Williams to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Item 28C is the annexation of approximately 251 acres in South Fargo. This was brought in front of you January 11th, and you directed us to put together a resolution of annexation. Went to the Fargo Planning Commission on February 2nd, and it was found that's consistent with our 2007 growth plan. And then now it's in front of you this evening. We did the mailings, and in essence, we're recommending approval for the commission to declare that there's insufficient protest on the annexation and direct staff to record the document with the Cass County Recorder. Just to maybe give a real quick sort of rundown of what's going on here, this land includes the Sanford project that's that's going to be under construction soon. You will see the plat that's gone through Planning Commission in the near future. It also includes the NDSCS property off of 64th Avenue. The strips of the annexation are a result of us acquiring land to be able to start designing the infrastructure for 45th Street and 64th Avenue. And then you'll see kind of two areas left out. Planning Department's still working with the property owners on that. We're not quite ready to bring that forward. However, that swath in the middle accommodates a stormwater easement that is needed in order to complete some of the design engineering on this project. If there's any questions, I would love to answer any questions.
Any questions of the commissioners? Anybody in the public wish to speak to this? Anybody want to speak to the annexation? If not, I'll close it. I'm just curious, how come it's more or less? You had engineers on your staff that could get it right down to the 10th of an acre.
Just to be safe, sometimes between the different coordinate systems and the AutoCAD system, you could be off a couple hundredths of a square foot.
Good to know. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston.
Aye.
Gary.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yes. Item D, Southridge First Edition, 2365 and 2445 65th Avenue South. Approval recommended by Planning Commission on 2/2/21. This is a growth plan amendment, and it's a zoning change from multiple dwelling residential to limited commercial with a conditional overlay on lots 5, 6, Block 3, and it's the first reading of the ordinance. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. This item prepared by the Planning Department also has an ordinance prepared by the City Attorney's Office in your packet, and I believe we have the applicant on virtual here too. Southridge First Edition is a growth plan amendment and zone change. It's located here on the corner of 64th Avenue South, 25th Street South, two arterials. These properties were platted in 2014 and still, or 2016, have not been developed. They were originally zoned for multi-dwelling development, MR3. The applicant proposes to change these two to be commercial, which is a reasonable thing to have on the corner of two arterials here. The underlying growth plan does show it as residential, so we had to go through the process to change the growth plan as well. And that's described in your staff report there. So again, it's going to go from the MR3, the orange, to the limited commercial, which is similar to what's across the way here, although this property is undeveloped. Growth plan change, again here, this map is in your staff report and packet, shows the growth plan change from residential to commercial. Just what the site looked like a couple of weeks ago, still looks pretty much the same today. Staff's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen. Again, this does include a conditional overlay, which just makes it a little more receptive to the surrounding residential there. So I'm just puts a little control.
What's the intent? What do they want to put on there?
I don't know that they have a tenant at this time. Blake Carlson of Christensen Companies, I believe, is with us virtually.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Do you know what you're going to do with that yet, Blake?
We don't have a user yet for the property, but we just think it's a good spot to do a limited commercial. So nothing in mind at this time. This is our first step here. So there's not really a lot of commercial in that area unless you go up to 52nd Avenue near the Don's Car Wash area. We think this is a reasonable use for the lot. So happy to answer any other questions about it.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this change in zoning? Anybody wishing to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have one question.
Commissioner Preston.
Donald, can you tell me, is it residential to the west and then northwest? Is that both of those residential?
So on the zoning, you mean, ma'am?
I'm sorry?
On the zoning, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, ma'am. So this here, again, going to the east here, this would be multi-dwelling residential. This across the street here and up here is single family or single dwelling residential.
So those are compatible with the land use plan, I'm assuming?
Yes, ma'am.
Residential on that side?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why they had to change the growth plan here, the land use plan, to make those two lots allow for commercial and then zone it commercial.
What's the pink stuff? What is that?
That's limited commercial as well, sir.
Okay.
But that property is undeveloped, as you know.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Pipcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Don. Item 21, COVID-19 update, Fargo County Public Health update. Desi Fleming, are you out there somewhere?
I am out here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Today's COVID results have Cass County at 142 active cases, which has increased since my last update from February 8th. The 14-day rolling average positivity rate is 2.35% in Cass County and 2.58% for the state. Hospitalizations continue to stay static. However, there has been a slight increase over the past week. Currently, there are 40 individuals hospitalized across the state. There have been 195 deaths in Cass County, with 2 more individuals passing over the weekend. Although testing numbers are declining across the state, we do continue to see new COVID cases, along with some small cluster outbreaks in our area. Fargo Cass Public Health has had a busy vaccination week with close to 4,000 doses administered. As of today, there have been over 40,000 vaccines given in Cass County across the 69 eligible providers, representing a 13.9% first dose coverage rate overall. Fargo Cast Public Health continues to vaccinate in the 1B group in order of priority, along with providing second dose clinics. Last Friday, we did put out a news release for anyone 65 and older to register on our COVID-19 vaccine phase 1B resident contact form, as we will be moving into this group in the weeks ahead. You can visit fargocastpublichealth.com and the link will be on our homepage if you have not done that already. Again, just a reminder, if you are on multiple facility lists, please update all facilities if you've already received your vaccinations so that all agency lists can stay up to date. Congregate settings will then be done the week of March 1st with allocations from the state. After that, the remainder of 1B will be all of those 65 and older, persons with 2 or more high-risk medical conditions regardless of age. Of course, the minimum age is 16 or 18, depending on which vaccine brand that you use. Wrapping up the 1B group will then be childcare workers and workers employed by preschool or K-12 staff. And as always, we encourage everyone to consider vaccination when their priority group is up. Thank you.
Any questions of Desi? Thank you. Greater Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, we're going to have a report by Joe Rosso tonight. I think you have a slideshow for us too, Joe?
A wonderful slideshow, Mayor.
Thank you.
First, thanks very much for giving us an opportunity to update you and take any questions that you might have of the organization. I also want to thank Mayor Mahoney and Commissioner Pepcorn for being active members of the Board of Directors of the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC and for the other commissioners for the ongoing conversations that we continue to have. I know Commissioner Preston will be meeting tomorrow for a little bit of time to answer some questions that you have, so I appreciate you reaching out to our team. I want to just introduce a few members of the team here tonight in case there are specific questions because of their areas of expertise. Right behind me, I'll just have them raise their hands. John Mahacek. John is our Chief Innovation Officer, has been with the organization for a while, we'll say. And next to John is Tiffany Jelinski. Tiffany's our Senior VP of Workforce Development and has been with us for a while as well. And then next to Tiffany is Ryan Osheim. Ryan is our Chief Business Development Officer and is involved probably more with the Tax Exempt Review Committee presentations that we do on behalf of various companies that we work with. I know in your packet there was quite a bit of information that was contained in that packet, and I just want to summarize that and leave time for Q&A with all of you. And so I'm just going to kind of roll through a handful of slides to paint a picture of the organization and what we're doing. In the first one, I really want, as much for the audience listening, is to really understand why there is this partnership between an economic development organization and the city. And when we look at this economy and just about any economy across the world, there are really 4 inputs. And what I mean by inputs is where dollars are coming from into our marketplace. The first is really transfer payments. When we see the state or federal government directing dollars into this region, it brings money here that's then churned in a lot of other places throughout the rest of the economy. The second is tourism. You know, we want to, as Charlie would say, we want a lot of heads in beds and a lot of events and a lot of business people coming through using our hotels and our convention centers and, you know, our other assets that we have across the region. The third is higher education, and obviously we're very fortunate to have as many higher education institutions across the region with upwards of 25,000 students who are paying tuition and spending money in our marketplace. And though all these are hugely important and part of the larger business development ecosystem, it's the primary sector businesses that are really bringing the majority of resources into the marketplace. And these are about 500 or 600 companies in our region, and we define primary sector as those businesses who do not need to be here to serve their client because their client isn't located here primarily. They're located across the country and around the world. And so every morning, those CEOs wake up and he or she might be thinking, if I'm going to expand my operations, do I do this here or do I do it elsewhere? And why would I do it elsewhere versus doing it here? So for 75 years, this year is the 75th year of this organization's existence in the region, representing different geographies over time, but 75 years, pretty much with that same mission in mind. Within the last 3 years, we've set a number of goals for the organization, that we're in the third year of this 3-year, we'll call it campaign, wanting to support at least 85 projects, looking at investments of more than $250 million, direct investments by these companies. There's a big impact of those investments. I'll talk about that here in a minute. Looking at creating at least 1,500 direct new jobs into the marketplace, and helping those businesses locate in new space or building new space, or occupying existing space that's vacant. I'm happy to say that as of today, we have already exceeded our 3-year goal within 2 years for the total capital investment and total square footage, and are pretty close in terms of the job creation numbers as well. So a lot we all can be proud of as entities that focus on economic development here in the region. Now, if we go back to 1993, the city of Fargo, West Fargo, and Cass County each put money into a fund to help support ongoing economic development efforts here in Cass County. And over those 27, 28 years, and by the way, those dollars were then provided to the EDC to manage. About $8.5 million is what's in that loan fund today, and it's a loan fund to support the growth of our economy, primarily focused on primary sector companies, but we also have supported childcare facilities and affordable housing developments over the last few years. But I just want all of you and those listening to see the kind of impact that initial investment of around $7 million has made in our economy, where we've seen about 6,000 jobs created, over $500 million of capital investment, and the other numbers that are reported there. Now, some of those projects would occur in rural Cass County or in West Fargo, but the reality is that the impact's felt across all of our communities. And I think directly, as of today, about 70% of those investments were from companies that located and expanded in Fargo. Now, there's a lot of numbers on this particular screen, but really the point here is that when a company makes an investment in our community, a primary sector company, and they have payroll and they buy supplies and equipment and they construct facilities, those dollars are then used and spent in other ways throughout the community. They might need to go to the gas station, go to their accountant, a doctor's office, buy groceries, whatever it might be. All those dollars are then churned in this marketplace. And so as the Economic Development Organization, with your support and others, our focus is on the primary sector. And if we're successful, you start to see these kind of returns. So just in the last 2 years, in 2019 and 2020, there are about 50 projects that we worked with you and other communities and other partners to make happen here in this marketplace. And those dollars then get spent in various ways. And here's just a rough summation of how those dollars get spent across our regional economy. So in the last 2 years, about $281 million of construction investment. Hospitals saw at least $11 million of additional revenue. And that's just those projects by those companies in that 2-year period of time. It's also important to note that the recurring investment, because they're going to continue to pay payroll and their taxes and other investments as businesses every year, about 63% of the numbers that you see will occur every year, so long as those companies stay in business at those employment levels with those wages. And we know that that's not the case. They're usually growing. So these numbers are actually very conservative numbers. And when it comes down to the tax base, what it means to individual taxing bodies, or in our market, when we look at just those projects in the last 2 years, taking out any incentives, and I think this is important to note, there's about a $3.8 million increase in annual tax revenue. Now, not all of that's coming to the city of Fargo. It's also going to support our schools and the park districts and some of the other communities. But it's still a positive investment that we're seeing, not only with the businesses that I showed you on the last slide, but with the taxing entities. So that revenue is allowing you to support the other things that you're charged with supporting, right? Public safety, infrastructure, and other things. So that's what this partnership is about, is how do we together, working with these companies, make good decisions that lead to positive economic growth, not only for their business and them to support their employees, but it's also the revenue that our taxing bodies receive, whether it's sales tax or property tax or other user fees. We have three key, what I call nonprofit partners that I think is at least worth mentioning. Fueling Our Future is an initiative that we started that you helped support, as you know, with the Chamber. 2 years ago in May, we announced it. And you'll be seeing quite a bit more information coming out in the near future on some of the initiatives that Fueling's been involved in. Obviously, the Chamber has a new leader with Shannon Full as the CEO, and really enjoying working with her and her team. So there's many things that we've supported already, things like the Career Workforce Academies and some initiatives to better engage and support college students to help them stay in the region instead of coming here and then leaving after they have their degree. We also are involved in a Red River Valley initiative called the Valley Prosperity Partnership. And this is really important to stay focused on the legislative happenings, both in Bismarck and in St. Paul. And so that group has been focused on public policy. We do that in partnership with the Chamber here and statewide associations and other groups. But it's really an effort on the part of the business community along the Red River Valley to stay focused on critical issues. It could be water, it could be research at our universities, and workforce development are three of the primary ones that we're focused on now. And then lastly, you see there on the bottom our long-standing relationship with Emerging Prairie to help to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we do that in two ways: help fund and support ongoing what we would call placemaking activities. It could be 1 million cups, it could be co-working spaces and other things to allow for that creativity and that engagement of entrepreneurs, but it's also becoming much more focused on what we would call core business development. So as the UAS or unmanned aerial systems industry is growing, how do we help grow that here versus someplace else, or precision agriculture or advanced manufacturing? And obviously Emerging Prairie has a lot of work they're doing with the Grand Farm and precision ag. And so we partner with them to try to drive more business from outside the region here because of assets that they're building. So if you or anybody else wants to learn more, very easy, you can go to our website, gfmedc.com, publications, get our annual report, get our annual meeting, which is a 23-minute video, and other documents that you could get filled in more on. And obviously, be happy to take any questions you have right now.
Commissioners, any questions or discussion? Commissioner Tipcorn.
I got a couple quick ones. So first one, the gentleman spoke earlier. He talked about Amazon and he was concerned about the, that it wasn't public. And can you talk a little bit? I mean, some of that is that the business itself doesn't want to disclose things until they're sure. And so could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so and it happens often. And as some of you might know, it's about 27, 28 years of having the honor of doing this type of work in different markets around the country. And in nearly all of them, as we work with these primary sector companies, because they don't have to be here to serve their client, they are looking at multiple locations. And while they're doing that, sometimes there's a competitive issue that they don't want competitors to know, or certain aspects of their decision-making that's really, at times, best not to have communicated. Always at the end of the day, it's going to be communicated if it's going through a public process and looking to receive assistance or approvals. In the case of Amazon and many clients, we are required to sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So, for example, and this gentleman, my board chair didn't know about this project. I could not tell him. Our team could not tell members of the board of directors until we were given permission to have that conversation. So, those are kind of the rules at times that we have to play by on these projects.
Can I just one more thing? So the other thing that I think it's important for the public to know is, so even though Fargo is a partner, we're too small to just do this by ourselves. And so that's why it's very important that Cass County and Moorhead or whoever, that they all participate, because we're too small. If, let's say that Fargo, if we tried to do this by ourselves, it would not have the same impact. And so I think that's important to know. And maybe you want to talk a little bit, and then I'll just say one complimentary thing. So Joe he came here, I would say the EDC was maybe struggling a little bit, and it's just been, it's the importance of having an excellent leader it's made a huge difference. And so I think a few years ago, we were very concerned about the money that was going in from the city of Fargo, and now I would say those concerns are much less. So thank you for what you've done, and I'm sorry to interrupt that, but thank you.
No, keep talking.
Mr. Preston.
If I could, to answer your one question, and I'll use Amazon since it was brought up. A lot of times when companies or the consultants that they hire to find locations, they're not looking for one location because they know that that one location may have issues with it that they can't see initially. In this particular case, we were informed on June 6th of this opportunity. We had to respond by June 8th, and we responded with 8 different sites in this region, not knowing which one would be the right one and not knowing whether this region would be the right region for this particular project. So there's a lot of unknowns. The key is, to your point, is these decisions are first looked at regional levels. And then they start to hone in and find what's the best site, what's the best logistics, what's the best workforce, what's the best speed to market. And I can tell you in 28 years of doing this work, and I mentioned it when the project was announced, I've not seen a faster set of effort made, all within the confines of regulations, to address the issues for this project. So speed to market was the incentive for Amazon in this project more than anything else.
And you'd say the city of Fargo's engineering and planning team did an excellent job on that, right, Joe?
Absolutely fantastic. And if I could say, Mayor, the relationship with Senator Hoeven and the ability to look at a wetlands issue, which was probably the size of this desk, and get it addressed in 8 days, which normally would take 60 to 90 days. Again, not you passing up regulations and things that had to happen, but those are the kinds of things that our relationships are critical because these companies, they expect it and we have to have that.
Yes, you did a great job. Mr. Preston.
With your job creation goal, do you have criteria in regards to average wages? Or can you also tell us, with those that were created in the last couple of years, do you have an average wage?
You know, the last numbers that we put together, and I don't think it would have included like the second half of last year. I think the average wage was probably in the upper 60,000s without benefits. Now, for those who don't know, the average wage per capita in this region is about 35,000. Okay, now you add benefits to it. I know the gentleman raised the concern about Amazon. Amazon, the minimum is $15 an hour. That's not going to be everybody. There's also full benefits. There's also the opportunity to upgrade and have Amazon pay up to 95% of tuition for anybody who wants to go to school and continue their education. So I think it's important to look at the entire package of what's being offered and how that supports the community, because we're not here for the sake of jobs. We're here to see growth and wealth in our community. And if we don't add a single job, but the people are better off, I think a lot of people would see that as success as well. So to your point, is there a set wage level? There's not a set wage level, but what we do is we look at the projects and we say, for this type of business with these types of occupations, what does this company need to pay to increase the wages in the marketplace for those occupations? Which is really important, because to say we're going to pay somebody with this skill and this occupation the same thing that we would pay somebody with a different is probably kind of an unequal way of looking at it. But if you start to look at the occupations for those businesses, and the companies want to know that anyway, because they don't want to come in here and offer a job with a wage and benefits and they're not able to attract the workforce that they need.
Any other questions? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, I'm just curious. We had visited the discussion, we had addressed the discussion of the Career Workforce Academy.
Yeah.
If I recall, our city decision was to offer support for it contingent upon receiving federal funds through a COVID grant. I don't know, did that happen, or where did that all go?
Yeah, there was a decision by, I think it's the Economic Development Administration, I want to say, or Department of Commerce to support the Career Academy. There's about $22 million raised between county, city, private, and federal funds. Where we are today, and I think this is important for everybody listening, if they can reach out to your state representative, is to really communicate to them the importance of the state's engagement in this as well. This is a, just so people understand, career workforce academies are the ability for high school students, I'll just say that, it's bigger than that, but just to simplify, for high school students to get exposure and experience to careers that they might have an interest in and the education needed to get into that career. So hopefully by the time that they've graduated from high school, they could be well on their way or even have an associate's degree and be working in that field and have that experience. There are 7,000 of these across the United States. They've been in place for 30, 40 years. So it's not a new concept. But what we're trying to do is build that here along with the one in Moorhead to give students and their families an understanding of what opportunities there are for them much earlier in their education experience. And so the commitment of the city, of the county, of the private sector, and of the federal government is all come forward. What we need right now is we need the state of North Dakota to pass legislation to finish this off.
And Mayor, if I might continue, we've had a really major shift in the diversion authority getting a project now versus fighting for that project. What's that impact going to be, and how is that a game changer? Or were we all prepared for that? All these thousands of new jobs and everything that's now coming versus hopefully coming?
Well, there's several layers to that onion. The first is the macro question of how important is it to have our region not be subject to major flooding. And I can tell you, when you're talking to primary sector businesses, they're worried about this, okay? And they're worried about this not just here, but any market they're in where they can see the potential for natural disasters really impacting them in a negative way. I've heard numbers as big as $8.5 billion if we had another flood. Personally, and I didn't sit down with pen and paper and try to figure this out, but I think
It's 18 billion, so.
yeah, and it could be larger than that because it's a long-term impact on a marketplace. So doing this is critical, and I think we all know that. But then your question, I think, is about the workforce and about, the 7,000 jobs that will be here over the next 6 years as this is getting built out. We've had conversations with Joel, with the Diversion Authority. We're having conversations with Shannon at the Chamber and others, and these have been ongoing for some time. I think this market is big enough to absorb if we plan appropriately and we continue to be focused on it. Will we see challenges with existing firms that are seeing some employees get pulled away? Yes, I think that's going to happen. But I also think there's a long-term opportunity for us, which is if we have thousands of people coming into our market to work over the next few years, what are we communicating to them about this being a place they want to stay and they want to live and they want to build their family here? And so all aspects of this are things we're talking about, but I would say we have more work to do as organizations in this region to address this.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. Good report. Good to see things are going well in Fargo, and keep growing. Keep having things happen, if you would.
Thanks for your support. Really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Item 31, the North Broadway Bridge. Brenda Daring to explain, a bridge that is having some issues.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As you know, we have closed the North Broadway Bridge, and I wanted to get in front of you and update you on what's happening up there and our path forward on the bridge. So here's a very high-level overview of the North Broadway Bridge along with the 40th Avenue Bridge or County Road 20. And so right now we do have the North Broadway Bridge closed, and so they're using that 40th Avenue Bridge. And then here's kind of a closer look, and then the North Broadway Bridge. So the history, the North Broadway Bridge was built in 1990. It's a typical 3-span bridge, The north pier is the pier that is moving. And so in the mid 90s, our inspections found the north pier tilting south towards the river. So to correct that, in 2000, Clay County and the city of Fargo completed a project to correct that tilting pier. So what we did is we added to the pier to help provide additional support for the girder due to the movement. And then we added steel rods to hold the top of the pier from tilting more. Unfortunately, what has happened is the ground has continued to move and now has put a bend in that pier. So in 2020, we did have a consultant come out and evaluate the bridge. And so the recommendation was to monitor the bridge and to monitor that angle. And if the angle worsened, we would have to look at closing the bridge. So on February 10th, 2021, there was a recommendation to close that bridge. So one of the options we're going to have going forward is to rehabilitate the bridge. And what that would do is we would install a cofferdam with new piling. And then we would install the new pier footing and the column. We would temporarily support that bridge, remove the existing pier and install a new pier cap, and then remove the temporary supports, and then we would have a new pier there. So going forward, what we will be doing is we'll be working with the Clay County staff to further evaluate our options. And so the potential options we'll be looking at is that rehab cost. We do need them to update that cost. So last year was approximately $2 million. And then we'll also look at replacing the bridge. And right now, as of last year, that was about $4 million. And then that bridge does flood at an elevation of about 23 feet. So we close it at 22, and then it floods at 23 feet. You know, we just want to understand what it would take to replace it at that higher elevation. And then the last option is just to not have the bridge there, to remove the bridge. So some of the other items we will be exploring, though, is we'll be working with the engineering firm. The roadway on the North Dakota side, North Broadway, is not stable. We've had some issues with a fault in it, and so we will be evaluating that. Now, we are, with the flood work that we're doing on Royal Oaks, we're going to be pulling that cul-de-sac away from the river, and so we will be helping the bank in that aspect, but we don't know what the full impact will be along the river. So as we go through all of our options, we'll want to be looking at the stability of that roadway. We want to examine the short-term and long-term traffic impacts from having that bridge closed. And then we want to gather feedback from the residents on both sides of the river. And then we'll be returning back to the commissions with our recommended options. Any questions?
One of the questions was if you take this bridge down and would concentrate it on the bridge at 12th Avenue to improve that so it's at a higher elevation, is there any thought that we might want to do that rather than to put, you know, this bridge is too low right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Commissioner Pipcorn, you talked in the past of getting that 12th Avenue bridge higher so when we have a flood, we don't shut it down. Would there be any thought that maybe we could look at that as an option?
And I think we can. I think we need to just walk through those steps with this bridge first, kind of look at those impacts, and then we can look at, you know, if it is a bridge removal option, we can look at maybe adding some funding to that 12th Avenue bridge then.
So, Mr. Chair, so Brenda, the funding for a bridge, let's say hypothetically we build a new one, who, is that a state or a county or the city, or how would that go?
So this bridge is, you know, because it was outside city limits to begin with, it's a Clay County, City of Fargo bridge. But now Moorhead is extended there. So this bridge is a Moorhead Clay County bridge. The 12th Avenue Bridge is a City of Fargo, the North Broadway Bridge is a City of Fargo Clay County bridge, and then 12th Avenue is City of Fargo Moorhead. And so you'd look at MnDOT funding and North Dakota DOT funding.
So can I ask, so is this like a MetroCog? This could be one of their potential projects, or would that be a different thing?
You know, they have their 20-year plan. I mean, that's one thing we would have to evaluate is how that would get onto their plan. So they have their transportation plan, kind of that global plan that they work off of, and that's something that wouldn't be on it today.
So, Mr. Chairman, just one more thing. So the big thing, I would not support not replacing that bridge, because if you close that bridge, we're going to have a lot more traffic in that area just with Amazon. We anticipate North Fargo is going to be growing, and North Moorhead, I believe, too. And so if you close that, you're going to be pushing traffic into a neighborhood, and I would not support that. And I think this is the opportune time with the diversion coming in. We're going to know what the height that we need to build a high bridge. And I know it'll cost a lot more money, and I know it'll probably take a lot longer, but I think this is the time to do that. And we can't do both of those bridges at once, but with these closing, it's always in North Fargo. I live in North Fargo, so I might sound like a whiner, but those bridges close when the river barely gets to 25 feet, and it isn't safe. And so I just think now's the time, and I think to temporarily repair it is good, but I think down the road, we got to look at raising those bridges so they're good, even when we have high water. So that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Strand, you
I did. Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Pepcorn, that's exactly where my head was going, was what's the traffic flows? What are the expected needs and usages of these bridges with the different interplays of one being removed or both, you know what I mean? I think that's really what should be driving us is the needs for uses of the bridges. And if I recall, I think the diversion authority, or the water level through town will be 37 feet if we get to that event. So that'll be 12 feet, 10 feet of this bridge being underwater. That's where my head's at too. Let's get everything above that level if we can, and look at traffic. My question is this, a simple little basic question is, can pedestrians and bicyclers use this bridge at all, or why not?
No, because there's a stability concern. And because of how it was constructed, if for some reason there is a failure, the MnDOT felt it wouldn't be a month-long failure and slowly fall, it will fall. So we've taken everyone off the bridge until we come with our options back to you.
Couldn't it be a pedestrian bicycle bridge in the meantime with proper allowances? I mean, it would.
John, you have to remember 35W. If this thing falls and somebody's on it, it's a liability.
I'm just asking about bikes and people.
Anybody on it at any time, if it falls, you're liable for their death.
So right now, the tilt of the pier is such that if it does fail, it will fail immediately. So we truly want to keep everyone off it until the repair happens so that nothing in safety-wise happens to anyone.
Commissioner Garrett? No, okay. Any other discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do one more item, then we'll take a 5-minute break. Item 32, recommendation by Commissioner Preston to implement voting at home for the 2022 primary election.
Yeah, so I'll just do a real brief update or compilation of the memo that I put together. First of all, North Dakota State Legislature, some of you may not realize, actually voted to allow counties to convert to voting at home back in 2017. There's a typo here. It's 33 of 50 counties have actually implemented it. So Cass County being one of them that haven't. The voter turnout actually in the 2018 primary election was really low. In Fargo, it was 11% and 13% in Cass County. Of course, with the pandemic, Voting at home was implemented across the state. At that time, our turnout, our participation rate in Cass County was 20%. So it jumped from 13% up to 20%. One other statistic, it's difficult because of the pandemic to really evaluate whether that kind of increase would be consistent. But you can look at other counties and the history there. In 2018, the participation rate for voting at home counties was about 31%. And in counties that didn't have voting at home, it was 17%. But let me just back up a little bit and explain. Voting at home means that everyone in the voter file gets an absentee ballot application. Right now, anybody that requests one can get it. But what this would do is make sure that everybody in the voter file gets one. And that's why the participation rate goes up, because people just don't think about requesting an application until it's too late and then don't follow through on it. So that's why the participation rate goes up. Then since city elections are decided in the primary elections, city, park board, and school board are decided in the primary elections. It's important to encourage voter participation to the greatest extent possible. A decision to administer future elections with voting at home for the entire county is a county decision, but the city contracts with the county to administer the city election and can work with the county to implement this in the entire city and or county. So my suggested motion is that we designate a commissioner, and I'm including a mayor as a commissioner here, designate a commissioner and or commissioners and staff to work with the county to, first of all, implement voting by mail for the 2022 June city election by sending out absentee voter applications as was done for the 2020 primary. Number two, ensure election day has at least one site for in-person voting and additional in-person early voting sites as was done for the 2020 general election. Number three, provide secure drop boxes in the city for people to deliver their ballots. Number four, investigate the success of applications and ballots getting delivered to voters in the 2020 election and address any problems identified. And then I'm going to add one more. Report back to the City Commission at the first meeting in June 2021 on progress being made. And for the sake of discussion, I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Commissioner Pepcorn.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to have Steve Sprague involved in this too, obviously, because he works with Mike Montplaisir. And I would like to participate too, but if you want to, or if there's a problem with too many commissioners, with it being a public meeting, that's fine. But I'd just like to, if it's possible, I'd like to participate too. That's it. Thank you.
Any other comments? I think we could have you and Arlette be on there, Dave, unless there's an objection by anybody else, but that'd be fine, I think. You and Tony kind of have suggested the in-person, so I think you'd represent that very well, and Arlette could do the voting at large. That'd be fine.
And Mr. Chair, just one more thing. The other thing is this is complimentary. We would still have in-person voting, and so to me, I just think it's hopefully making it easier for people so more people will participate. So I think it's a good thing. My main thing is, if you wanted to be on this instead of me, or if one of the other commissioners, that's my main thing. So if possible.
I think the commissioners are okay with that. Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Take a 5-minute break and come back at 6:14. If we can get one more commissioner up here, I think we can restart. Don't jump up here. I don't want you to break your ankle again, so. Item 33, recommendation from the Liquor Control Board to discuss proposal to remove the 100-foot rule and expansion of the Class B alcoholic beverage license. Steve Sprague to explain.
You talked faster than I could walk.
Preston was faster than you.
Well, I did hear you say, don't break your ankles. So Commissioner Gehrig requested that the Liquor Control Board discuss what I'll call the 100-foot rule. And then also a second item was to discuss the number of Class B liquor licenses that we have available. And so we did have a discussion at Liquor Control. And in my memo, I point out that all of the ordinances that we have there, they come about for a reason. Some history on the 100-foot rule. It was about in the 1970s when the convenience stores were just kind of becoming a popular item. That request came to the city commission at that time to allow alcohol sales in the convenience stores. And at that time, the city commission, from my reading of the ordinances, I think they were concerned about the impression that you put out by having the ability to go into a store and buy a 12-pack or buy some alcohol and then go out and get in your car and drive away. And it was the drinking and driving thing that was my impression of what the ordinances or the reason that the 100-foot rule came about. Now, that was the 70s. And so, the question I think that needs to be asked is, are the reasons that we implemented that ordinance at that time still appropriate today? And so that was the discussion that we had at Liquor Control.
So the 100-foot rule is for what businesses? It has to be 100 feet from what type of businesses?
That's a good question. So it is for off-sale only, for the off-sale businesses. So it has to be 100 feet from a gas station, a grocery store, or a drugstore, I believe is what is in our ordinance.
Okay, Commissioner Gehrig.
Yeah, so that's a great, the synopsis of what the discussion was, and ultimately, it seems arbitrary that we have this law in the book still. No one is suggesting we want to sell beer or wine in gas stations. I don't think anyone here would do that. We don't have a license for that, and I don't know what license we would use if we wanted to. So that'd be something we knew we'd have to create. Ultimately, this is preempting future business. So businesses like Costco, people have different versions of why they didn't come here. But one thing I did here was that we didn't allow the liquor store in the building because of our 100-foot rule. So we're foregoing large stores and future small stores because of this law. We also limit the license pretty dramatically. So even if we change the 100-foot rule, we still don't have any new licenses available, no off-sale licenses available. So we could still get rid of this law and not have any new stores because there's no more licenses. To that point, though, and correct me if I'm wrong with the numbers, Fargo has about one off-sale store for every about 10,000 people. Just to put it in perspective, Grand Forks, I believe, was 2,500 people. So one per every 2,500 people. So you can see we're really dramatically restricting these off-sales. And sure, some parts of Fargo do have more than they probably should, but there are other parts of Fargo that don't have a convenient place for these things to go, or a license in order to do it. So one, the law is quite arbitrary. Two, the reason it was put in place really I don't think is a concern anymore. No one wants these things to be in gas stations. And three, it preempts future business. I asked the board members, the liquor control members, to think about it and give me a good reason why this should remain on the books. And no one could really come up with a reason. The only reason that I've been, put to me is, you're going to hurt my business if you allow more business. Well, that'd be protectionism. And protectionism is never the role of local government, nor is it a good excuse to preempt future business. It's not good for liquor stores, it's not good for grocery stores, it's not good for any business. Competition's a good thing, and the free market works, and people, the general public, benefit from that competition. So what I'm asking for is for this board to, one, and I'll make it separate motions. The first would be to eliminate the 100-foot rule.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. What was your second part?
Second part would be, quite frankly, I'm disappointed in that. I would challenge you guys to give me a really good reason why this should be in place. And I can't come up with one, so.
Commissioner Strand.
I would just like to hear the Liquor Control Board's recommendation. As I read this, somebody recommended we discuss it, but we don't have I'd like to see what their recommendation is. I think your thinking is pretty solid, potentially, but I'd like to know have them vet it, recommend us an action based on their study, and I'm wide open to hearing that, but that's where I'm at, is I want to know what the Liquor Control Board's recommended to us. And I don't think it's anything at this point.
Well, there's 4 of us sitting here.
Liquor Control didn't take a motion to expand license B, but they did vote to get rid of the 100-foot rule.
I believe that the way we voted was that that the city commission should decide, is basically what we said. So I know that people want to see a study and they want empirical evidence, but there's no empirical evidence, not with anything. What I'm saying is that if there isn't a good reason to have a law in the books, that law shouldn't remain. And at this point, there is no good reason for the 100-foot rule. It's protectionism is what it is.
Commissioner Strand.
Commissioner Pepcorn, you're chair of this commission, and you've been there for years. What's your recommendation procedurally?
Well, I apologize. I missed the last meeting, so I was out of town last week, so I apologize for that. But I do think, and I know you're a fan of letting everybody speak, and I think that would be good to have it at Liquor Control and make sure that it's publicly promoted, to have people come and talk about what are their feelings about it, the current liquor license holders, the neighbors, and things like that. So I think that would be good.
Mr. Garrick, second motion?
Second motion is to remove the limit on the Class B license.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion lacks for lack of a second.
All right, so ultimately, we'll just put it back in liquor control, but, I don't see the need for it. We're the ones making the decision. There's no special sauce at these meetings. It's people's opinions. So you guys have an opinion too, but ultimately, we're foregoing future business by doing this. We're hurting jobs, we're hurting the economy. If you drive down Veterans right now and you drive south off Interstate, you look on the right-hand side, that's West Fargo. The left-hand side is Fargo. On the right-hand side, you see Costco, you see grocery stores, you see bars and restaurants, you see liquor stores, you see a lot of investment in West Fargo. On the Fargo side, the left-hand side, you see McDonald's, and you see gas stations, and you see Papa Murphy's. Now, those businesses are fine, and I'm glad they're here in Fargo, but there's a dramatic difference in the investment being put into Fargo versus West Fargo. And last thing I'll say is, one of the commissioners in West Fargo saw my post about this, and she wrote back to me, I hope Fargo denies it because we're benefiting.
In fairness, on the Costco discussion, the city of West Fargo also added some incentives, so it made it a little bit more to go to West Fargo. Next item, we have legislative matters. So we've been struggling with trying to come up with a way of handling legislative matters, and so you will see 2 options in that area. Commissioner Garrick suggested one position in an attempt to try to get a feeling about which way to go on how to handle this. I went back to an old proposal that was given to, I think, 2 years ago to the commission. And all I'm requesting tonight of the commissioners is please tell me your preference so that we can kind of solve this issue. So I'll open it to discussion. Or Commissioner Garrick, do you want to talk to your part on this?
I'll have Eric explain mine since he helped draft this. It ultimately just uses the agenda as a way to put it in public how the city commission is voting.
Good evening, Commissioners. Eric Johnson here. Actually, I drafted both of these policies. The one that the mayor is referring to was submitted to the city commission at the time 2 sessions ago, so 4 years ago. It was never acted upon, but there was conversation about it. And both the policies are, virtually identical in the sense that they both contemplate the idea that the staff puts together recommendations, and in particular, Commissioner Garrick's proposal here sort of specifically calls out, as does the first paragraph of the mayor's proposed policy, that allows an individual commissioner to pull a bill off a sort of a list and have discussion about it and maybe vote up or down as to whether that's the position of the city commission. Other than that, there isn't really a position taken precisely by the city commission other than to simply authorize the department heads of the staff members to testify in accordance with what they feel is appropriate in their good judgment. And that's really it. I think the added item in the mayor's proposal, which is item 34B, it just talks about the concept of individual commissioners going out to the legislative, the two legislative the Senate and the House of Representatives, and stating whether they represent the city of Fargo, meaning sort of the majority position of the majority, or if they're taking a position at odds to state that they're speaking as an individual. That's in item 34B, the mayor's proposed policy. But other than that, it's a matter of staff presenting a list. That list getting approved. If it's approved, it's sort of like the consent agenda. The staff is able to.
Eric, can you put the list on, the list you had there, that last slide? Yeah.
Right. So that would be an example of the list where the position is stated, it's highlighted in red if the city's opposed, it's highlighted in green if the city supports it. That also is a list that indicates, this list indicates those bills where the city is presenting written and verbal testimony or just written testimony. There might be other bills in addition to that where the city's expressed a position, but it's not sort of making an appearance at the legislative body. It's just on a list and available for local, our legislative delegation out of Fargo to be able to see what the city's position is on it. But this list are those bills with either written testimony being provided by city staff or written testimony combined with an actual appearance either virtually or in person.
So there's 800 bills that have come up this last year, and you can see we've isolated it down to 28 bills to support or oppose. We're going to cross over, so it's almost like this will be, depending on which way the House is voted or the Senate is voted, in which we would take a stand. And then there's some other bills that sometimes come up as the legislative process goes through, is that we do articulate what we want. This would be published as it is in the consent agenda, and then as a commission, you could say, yes, we agree with this list or don't. Or I think, Tony, you said you could pull one out and put it on the regular agenda. If you said House Bill 1305, I'd like to discuss as a commission. Otherwise, all of them would be approved as they stand. Open for discussion. Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a big difference, I guess.
No.
So
the only difference is the one pager has the idea about an individual.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that. So
Yeah.
they're not mutually exclusive. So I think in general, we agree on.
Well, it's a question to put on consent agenda if the team wants to do that.
And yours does not say that, or
No, it didn't say that, so.
Well, if we could agree to do that, then I think we agree on everything, don't we?
Depends on the
I think so.
commissioners.
I mean, I'd make the motion to take both these examples and put them together, just do what you were saying and put the list that you have here on consent, and that way people can pull it off if they want to. Otherwise, it just goes silent and we all agree, right? So I guess it's a hybrid of the both, is my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? Mr. Strand.
Thank you. I really think this is a valuable discussion, and we have it every 2 years. And I think we commonly end up deciding we're not going to censor people or stifle voice and chill it. But I'm still having problems with this whole process because we're taking a little moment in time, and everything's fluid in Bismarck. I'm hesitant to put a rubber stamp or a vote on something that might change tomorrow, might be amended the next day, might not be the same as it was yesterday. And I don't want to look stupider than I do too often. So that's my concern, is I welcome the discussion and the debate. I'm hesitant, I wouldn't recommend putting our up or down vote on legislative topics on our consent agenda. I think we need to focus on city issues, have people who are interested in, like Commissioner Garrick, when you go to Bismarck, I say go too, enjoy it and drive safely. But take your voice out there. I wouldn't want to in any way affect that, but I'm hesitant to put it to a vote of us when I just don't know what they're doing in Bismarck. I don't know that you have a name of a bill or a number of a bill. That's about all we know. And I just think we'd be sticking our foot in our mouths more often than we want to when we act without all the information we need. And it's really not our authority necessarily.
So you have one thing, Commissioner Strand, is that, for instance, on the ordinance that keeps guns in the home as a shop, Eric went out and testified as we opposed that because we felt we followed it to the way it is. And Commissioner Garrick went out, represented himself, was who he was, a commissioner, and opposed it because he felt a different way. So this would take that we, passed on a consent agenda that we agree with Eric. He could bring it to the commissioners for discussion to make sure what our vote was, but you wouldn't have the whole list. Commissioner Strand.
Like, for example, I have one bill to have us put a little bit of focus on tonight. I think when we have something that we want to bring to the commission, we do it. That's I would welcome that. But so if you have something you want to alert us to, or if I want to alert you to, I think we should welcome that routinely. But only if somebody decides that that's in their best judgment, something that should be done from our level at our commission.
Mr. Garrick.
And I don't disagree with you. I mean, they do change, and it's hard to keep track of them all. The reality is that this is happening. You know what I mean? We are sending people out there, and before now, in the last couple times we've been through this, we're sending people, and I don't know what they're saying out there, and I don't know if I'd agree with what they're saying, and it's happened to me more than a few times, and that's why I'm very sensitive to this, because I'm not going to play with that anymore. So I understand your concern, and I know what you're saying. But it is happening, therefore we need a structure for it to happen so that it's transparent, people know how we got to a point. And then if a bill changes, of course, you can't foresee that. But I'm hoping that you understand the benefit of this. It's not perfect, but there's a benefit to it.
John, do you want to do a suggested amendment? Because your amendment would take out what he has suggested.
Remind me what the motion is right now.
Go ahead.
The motion is to adopt a hybrid of both. So it's the same, it's my proposal with the difference of putting the list on consent, which I didn't have in mind, and then adding Tim's last paragraph of saying, hey, if you go out to Bismarck, you're representing yourself unless the city commission votes with you. And Tim, is that correct? Okay.
So Mayor Mahoney, for the sake of discussing it and vetting it, I move that we advance the proposal Commissioner Garrick just recommended, absent the requirement to list it on consent for our approval.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Discussion. So just for the commissioners to understand, what you would do is kind of combine proposal, but we take out the consent, doing the list and consent. And then the commissioner, if they had an issue with a bill, would have to just bring it to the regular consent, basically.
Or put it on the agenda.
Yeah, on the agenda, yes. Arlette Preston.
Chairman, so if I could just clarify. So it is up to us as individuals to pull a bill out and put it on the agenda. The list of bills will not be on the agenda anywhere.
That's your intent, John?
Yes.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
what I'm hearing from you?
Yes. Any other discussion? So John, if you just clarify your motion one more time for the commissioners?
My motion is to amend Commissioner Garrick's motion so that it reflects what he intended of a morphing of these two proposals into one, except that my amendment would be to us to consider, my suggestion is we don't put things on consent. Everything else stays as you recommended.
Roll call. Commissioner Preston?
If I could just express a little bit of a concern, and that is that staff would have more assurance if it's on the consent agenda that, yes, we're good with this, that we have looked at it, and that we're okay with it. That would be my only concern about pulling it off completely.
Mr. Strand?
Nothing more.
No counterpoint there, okay. Any other discussion?
On the amendment.
On the amendment.
On the amendment, yes. Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Gary,
No.
Preston,
No.
Mahoney,
Aye. So now that we vote on the original motion is to merge the bills, but we'd pull the consent out of it. Roll call vote. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary. Yes. Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
No.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Next item. It'll be interesting to see how that's written up next, or in the minutes. So.
Mayor, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Which topic are you going to next on the agenda?
Applications for tax exempts?
If I might, I'd like to, in the vein of the topics about legislative issues, I'm not going to call for an action here, but I'm aware of a commission that I'm liaison to, the Human Relations Commission, has an issue they're very concerned about, that they have taken a stand on, that they want to apprise us of, and they've also reached out to the school district about it, and it's might seem inconsequential to us, the implications of debates about legislation for transgendered children, but for the families and people affected, it's everything. So if I could ask Nicole Crutchfield, or if anybody from the HR, Human Relations Commission is here, just to let us know what you've stated on behalf of the commission to the legislators in Bismarck regarding House Bill 1298.
So, Mr. Chair, can I just point out, so this is an example, so this bill would have been one that you would have put on the agenda, and then we would have discussed it, correct?
Maybe.
But do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to say this, anyway, that's the, it's a good example of what we've just been talking about, so I think it's a good learning opportunity.
Nicole, you can come back.
I completely agree. I just would be remiss not having us know this commission's position has been stated on behalf of the city of Fargo.
Don't, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, John. I'm just saying this is a perfect example of, this is an issue, and so it should be on the agenda. And anyway, so it's kind of ironic. Thank you.
Nicole, you can speak.
Yeah, so House Bill 1298 is been brought to my attention on behalf of the Human Relations Commission, and that's not on the master list, and so that was in front of you. So we were just looking for clarity in conversation. I wasn't quite following the conversation prior to this, and so I was assuming that based on that motion, I would have clearance on providing testimony on behalf of Human Relations Commission on behalf of House Bill 1298. So hopefully that's true. So House Bill 1298 is basically targeting transgendered student athletes. And it might seem odd that the city of Fargo is taking a position on this when it's primarily school district and park district activities and university activities. However, the mission of the Human Relations Commission is to promote acceptance and respect for diversity and acceptance of identity. And so they feel like this bill is in contrary to that mission. And so they would like to bring their knowledge and expertise and provide that testimony on behalf of the city of Fargo.
Nicole, I think you also have to, Charlie Johnson sent out a memo today to us on this issue. And there's some restrictions in public buildings, our Fargo Dome, to have athletic events if there's any transgender people there. So I think it goes deeper than that. It cuts into a lot of different overreaches that they've taken, John, right, with this bill that may not have been the intended purpose, but have now had different consequences to our community.
Yeah. I would say it's another one of those bills where, typically at the staff level, we've been pretty silent because the bill itself has some constitutional issues that, from a technical perspective, we see.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Nicole, and Commissioner Pepcorn. I've accomplished what I wanted to, is just to have us be aware of this topic that commission is very close to. I'm not going to call for an action item here.
Very good. Item 35, applications for property tax exemptions for improvement made to buildings. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Appointments to the Sustainability and Resiliency Committee. Bruce Grubb has volunteered to re-show his PowerPoint for us if we want, or we could just accept the people that he's recommended, or the team has recommended, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Great candidates. I know you guys went through a lot of different candidates and found some people that would be very good. We have some professors that are going to be part of that. I think Commissioner Strand, you looked at them very studiously. You had great amount of applications and came up with great people. Roll call vote, please.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Number 4, extension of Class A alcoholic beverage license to Irish Hospitality doing business as Hennessy's Irish Pub is going to be moved to 6/30/22? Yeah, that can't be right.
No, 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks. Okay, I got a 6/30/22. So. Kimber? Go ahead, Steve.
No, that's it, Mayor. When I found out that we were going to discuss this on the regular agenda, I contacted the proprietor, and they weren't able to attend tonight, so they requested a 2-week stay.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's basically tabled for 2 weeks, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Gary.
Yeah. Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Any other businesses of commission? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.